Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi. Good evening. All right. So we are from CEL, stands for Center of Education and Language, MAHSA. Okay. So we are proud to present about our webinar today, which with the title of Efficiency in Literature Teaching. Okay. So I would like to say welcome to all of you to our humble presentation. So my name is Miss Nick Mazlin, and we are together with my co-partner named Miss Amrit. So we are together going to present to you about this topic for today. All right, can we start, Miss Amrit?
Yes, hello everyone. Okay, my name is Miss Amrit Kaur, as introduced by Miss Nick Mazlin. Thank you so much. Okay, so for today we will be talking about lit teaching. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so before we begin, I have a question for Miss Mazlin. Okay, what do you think, Mazlin? What the meaning of lit? What is lit?
Lit, as far as I know, is a short form for literature, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes, that is true.
Okay.
Okay, but what do you think? Youngsters these days, probably around 14 years of age, 17 years of age, what do you think they mean when they see the word lit? What do you think they will mean when they see the word? What it means for them?
It's
Do you
something
have
that
any?
related to fire
Okay,
or
that
light.
is yes. You
Okay.
are close. Yes, that is right. Any more?
I think that's that because I'm kind of old generation, I don't know about all these new terms and such.
Hmm. Okay, don't worry. I will lit your pathway. Okay, let's see. Okay, so when we first heard the word of lit, it was the good old days. Okay, this phrase came back in 1720s when it means something that is lit is meant for only object of discussion was supposed to be somehow illuminated. Okay, just like candles that you're looking right now. Okay, and then after that, lit became a phrase and it became something like lit up. So castles over yonder were lit up. Okay, they were used to describe sunsets and they were used to describe the skyline breathing from a lit sea beneath. Okay, in the beginning, in other words, there was light. Okay, and then moving on, it was used in the Victorian times where there was more or less the way things went. But at the start of the 20th century, something changed, and all of a sudden, to be lit up meant something entirely different. Okay, it means like to be drunk or otherwise intoxicated by drugs. Okay, and then after that, you can see the term moving from being drunk to a Christmas tree. Okay, so originally an Americanism, he took the word lit up and it actually traveled from the Victorian era right up till the Americanism time, and it made its way across the world where various localized spins on the phrase appeared everywhere. Okay, and there was an Australian pulp fiction that mentioned light yourself up like a Christmas tree, okay, to be lit up like a Christmas tree. And then it came the venereal disease. Okay, so Walter Downing, actually, he is a law student come lexicographer. Do you know what's a lexicographer, Lynn, Maslin?
Lexicographer, lexical. Does it mean like for people who compile words to for a dictionary purpose?
Yes. Okay. So they work on lexicals to be placed into the dictionary. So they deal closely with all these words. Okay. So this guy over here, Walter Downing, so he was a law student and he was also a lexicographer. He was serving in the World War One. Okay. And then he wrote in one of his writing, he actually mentioned the use of lit up. Okay, so that was an Australian way of saying lit up when actually they meant infected with venereal disease. Okay, so whenever they describe venereal disease, they said that this person is lit up. Okay, with venereal disease. Okay, and then we move on and we see the next one, the next picture, as you can see. Another meaning of lit that has developed over the last decade is probably an adjective, okay? And the meaning is something that means it, the meaning is hyped, okay? It's outstanding. And commonly, this sense is found in the phrase "it's lit," okay, or to go whole hog, it's lit fam, okay? So fam is the short for family, okay? And then after that, you will look at, okay, this is Travis Scott. So what happened was the term lit, the precise origin actually blurred all the lexicographer. They don't know where this term came from, even though all these things, you know, from right up to candles, up till here. Okay, so there are different kind of meanings, right? Semantically, it kind of changed. So what happened was Google Trends data showed a spike in lookups beginning in 2014, but Urban Dictionary entries from the sense date back to 2009. Okay, so at the same time, this sense appeared in the West Coast rap music. Okay, it had shown in the East Coast as early as 1997, but it just came back, okay? And this person over here is called Travis Scott, okay? So he's a Houston-based rapper, and he's actually the one who made the word really popular, okay? So he actually came out with "it's lit." Okay, so everyone around is using the word because it is something that is really in. Okay, so right from the beginning, if right now, if you look English, you know, in the English manner, in the grammar sense, it is actually the past participle of light. Okay, it is something to do with illuminated. But if you look at the history, there's a broad sense. It came from the candle, okay, from being illuminated right up till the wrapper. Okay, so that's a really long journey. So if you look at this, yeah, so being lit, as Maslin said just now, you do associate it with fire. Okay, so it is being associated with fire, and then even the 100. Okay, it's like you're a teacher. Okay, when you say it's lit, you give 100, you give a fire emoji. All this you have it in Instagram, especially. Okay, they have it in the features. So when you use all this, it shows that wow, it's amazing. And if you look at Urban Dictionary over here, it means something that is turned up, it's popping. Okay, so you can even say it's turned. Okay, so if you can see here, this is a conversation. How do you use the word lit as an adjective to things that are popping or turned? Okay, so all these are actually words. Okay, so words and literature, they are interconnected. Okay, and if you look here, now you would understand this joke. You see, where do you think the word lit came from? God once said, "Let there be light." It was lit. Okay, so it's really ambiguous. Okay, Maslin, did you understand this?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So it's actually really ambiguous. It's trying to say that let there be light. It was lit, and also it is lit in another sense. Okay. So it is really ambiguous, and you have like double meaning over there. Okay. So that is the background for lit. Okay. That's a whole journey over there. Okay. Now let's look at what is literature. Okay. So basically, literature came from the Latin word litera. Okay, so of course they have this Mexican way of pronouncing it, litera, which actually means a letter of the alphabet. Okay, so literature is actually the first and foremost humankind entire body of writing. Okay, after that it was the body of writing belonging to a given language or people. Okay, then it became the individual pieces of writing. Okay, so that is the whole background meaning from the Latin sense. Okay, and then we are looking at Merriam-Webster's collegiate dictionary, where it says that literature means writings having excellence of form or expression and expressing ideas of permanent or universal interest. And the last one, it was coined by Walter Pater. Okay, so he is basically the 19th century critic, and he referred to the matter of imaginative or artistic literature as a transcript, not of mere fact, but of fact in its infinitely varied forms. Okay, so literature is actually what I understand. You have, if you do research, okay, you do have literature review, okay, and in the literature review, you have to quote all the researchers, okay, and all those researchers who have conducted studies similar to yours, okay, so it's all about quoting, okay. So as you can see here, it's really important if you quote people's words, okay. People speak, they have their own quotes, they have something brilliant that they said about something, so when you quote them, it's actually giving credit to them, okay, so that is really important. Okay, the next one, let's look at the history of English literature. Okay, Maslin, how many periods do you think we have for the English literature? We have quite a number, right? How many periods do you think we have?
Okay, I believe there will be 8 period, right?
Are you
For
sure?
literature.
Are you sure?
Oh God, I really need to look back to my notes, and what I believe is there are 8 of them. Am I right?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Let's see if you are right.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is the Anglo-Saxon period, which was from the 449 to 1066 BC. Okay. So this is Old English literature or Anglo-Saxon literature, which encompasses literature written in Old English in Anglo-Saxon England. Okay, in the period after the settlement of the Saxons and other Germanic tribes in England, after the withdrawal of the Romans and ending soon after the Norman conquest, is in 1066. Okay, so that was the year. And the Anglo-Saxon actually influenced English literature when they brought with them a rich tradition of oral literature steeped in their customs, pagan beliefs, and rituals. The lyric and epic poetry that they had, okay, so they were popular for this, and they actually wrote all this, and through them they told the hardships of survival and the importance of courage in performing heroic deeds. It dignified the difficulties and dangers faced by the warriors before they succeeded in their heroic deeds. Okay,
Mm.
so they used literature actually, to represent, to show courage, the importance of courage. So literature is actually really important in that sense. So this was the beginning of literature. Okay, let's look at the medieval period. Okay, so it was up till 1470s, okay, where chancery standard, okay, so that is a form of London based English, okay, it became widespread, and the printing press actually regularized the language. The prolific Geoffrey Chaucer, okay, so his works were written in chancery standard, and he was the first poet to have been buried in Poets Corner of Westminster Abbey. Okay, so he had a lot of works. If you look here, this is him. So he is the father of English literature. Okay, so many of his works, a few of them were the Book of the Duchess, The House of Fame, The Legend of Good Women, and Troilus and Chryside. Okay, so he was an outstanding English poet before William Shakespeare. Okay, so William Shakespeare is actually quite popular, but this person over here, he came way before that. And one of his most famous work was Canterbury Tales, which ranks as one of the greatest poetic works in English. So he was a little background about him. He was born in the middle class family. He was said to be fluent in French, Latin, and Italian. And his first important poem was the Book of Duchess, okay, as I mentioned earlier, a dream vision of elegy for Blanche, Duchess of Lancaster, who died for a plague. Okay, so what I understand so far is that literature actually, they have all these themes related to their normal lives, right? Okay, and the most splendid in the history of English literature, actually. So, literary works were characterized by immense vitality and richness. Okay, and let's look at the next one, which is the English Renaissance or the Elizabethan period. Okay, so this was the most splendid in the whole history of English literature, as you can see. The flowering of poetry and the golden age of drama. Okay, and the most noted poet of the period was William Shakespeare. Okay, Maslin, are you aware of William Shakespeare? Do you know who is he?
Course. Of course, he's so prominent, right? He loves to
Yes,
create romantic stories, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, all this, right?
yes, that is right. Okay, Maslin. You see, you know quite much about literature. It's not that you don't know at all.
I know, but I need to, I need to take some time to refresh back
Yes,
my memories and all.
because we studied all this during our school days, right?
Correct.
Previously.
Yes.
Hmm. Yes, I agree with you. So, in this period, Queen Elizabeth, okay, she's the most regal monarch at the age of monarchy, was the key figure in influencing the life of her constituents. So, she was a great advocate of peace and order. Okay, so it was the high age of aristocracy, and it was the golden age of English literature. So, if you look here, you can see William Shakespeare. Okay, this is the good looking guy that we had. Okay, so you can see his significant literary genres. You can see comedy, history, tragedy, poetry. So he was actually quite into this. Okay, and there are really some really famous ones, especially the Taming of the Shrew, and then you have like Maslin mentioned just now, Romeo and Juliet, the sonnets. He had a lot of sonnets, right? How many sonnets? 154. Okay, so there were a number of sonnets and a number of poems. Poems are really brilliantly written by him. Okay, and then we move on with the next one, which is the 17th century, or you call it the Puritan period. So what happened here was catastrophe struck Britain. Okay, they had the Civil War, the Black Plague, the Great Fire of London, which really disrupted the otherwise orderly existence of the English people. Literature was permeated by the light-hearted cavalier of the solemn Puritans. Okay, so they were also famous for the period of dissension and calamity. Okay, and then we look at the next one, which is the 18th century, or you call it the period of classicism. Okay, so it was the dawning of the age of reason, where the London became the center of the bustling city life. Okay, literally mastered, have their craft, and have written with sophistication and finesse. So, what was popular here was prose writing, and the periodical and novel actually gained popularity and public acceptance. Basically, the periodical became the origin of what we call now as clarity and public acceptance. Okay, moving on to the sixth one. Okay, the Romantic period. The golden age of the lyric poetry belongs to the youth. Okay, so this was what it signified. Okay, a literature of vigor and courage, love and wisdom, despair and hope. Okay, romantic poets pointed to the wild, unfathomable beauties of nature, the elusive, supernatural vision of mystics and mysterious atmosphere of religion. And then they had such celestial light about the Middle Ages. Okay, and then let's look at Queen Victoria. Okay, this is where Queen Victoria came to the throne. This romantic fever had somewhat burned itself out, where men had turned their attention to the far reaching implications of the Industrial Revolution, which was at last transforming the entire surface and structure of England. So, Romantic period actually had seen a lot of changes from the first period that we had. Okay, and then we move on to the Victorian period, which is the second last. Okay, um, in the Victorian period, Victoria the First became the Queen of England in 1817. Okay, there were 3 years after the death of Coleridge and 13 years before the death of Wordsworth. Okay, and she reigned until her own death in 1901. Okay, and then the reign of England of comparable length is that of Elizabeth I, as you can see there. Okay, and like Elizabeth, Victoria had not only a political but a literary epoch named for her. Okay, the Victorian period, you can also see the keynote of the age. Okay, which was 1851, the Great Exhibition to London. It was a triumphant display intended to illustrate the superiority of England's scientific, social, and technological achievements. And the last but not least, which is the 20th century, okay, and this is called the modern period. Literature of this period exemplifies the improved crafts of master. The novel has flourished and writers has risen not only to popularity but to distinction as well. The emerging values of the modern times are embodied in the works of authors who defy the conventions of the old world. Okay, so science and technology became the basis for advancement, while orthodox beliefs are considered standard criteria for excellence. The emerging needs for radical changes became the order of the day. Okay, so these all the periods that we have. Okay, so you have had 8 periods so far. That was right, Maslin. You are right. That's good job. Okay, so which period do you think you like the most, Maslin?
I would definitely say I will love the latest period, which is the modern period or the 20th century period, because,
Okay.
in my opinion, the language they use are rather easy to understand, and because it is based on, like what you said, it's related to our normal life, right? Normally, this different period is related to to their normal life, so we are in the normal life of 20th century. So from
Hmm.
that, I find it very interesting, especially like if I want to share with you my favorite author like Stephen King, because he
Hmm.
loves to write a lot of thriller mystery novels, because the way he used the language, and Mitch Albom also, he's quite prominent, a prominent author. So this, I really love 20th century. It's easier for me to understand that way.
Yeah, so I think the basis of it is kids these days, they prefer something that is easy. And if you look at Old English, I think Old English has terms even you and I can't crack it. Even though we teach literature, but still we cannot get to the bottom of it, right? So I think they
Yes.
prefer something which is easy, which is like, something that's going with trends is easy. These days, easy is the new black. Okay, let's look at the next part. I would like to pass this to Mazleen, where she is going to tell us how do we teach literature to kids these days.
Of
Okay,
course.
let's look at this. Okay, yes, Mazleen.
All right, thank you, Miss Amrit. Okay, so we have heard those informational periods of literature. Okay, so far, as I've been telling you guys, the modern or the 20th century is the best because it relates much to our normal life, and I believe that the generation these days also they might find it interesting by just reading
Mm,
that. It's not that William Shakespeare did the horrible job. He was a great man. Okay, it's just that
the
the
best.
way he use the language, perhaps the way how they portray their normal daily life during that time, we can't even. It's unimaginable. We can't. It's difficult for us to imagine it. Okay, so that is why is it crucial for us to make teaching literature fun, as a fun lesson. Okay, because uh, from my based on my opinion, and I believe that my opinion is quite popular, because generation these days they find it quite a burden for them to read novels, to actually enjoy any piece of literature, because they are
Mm,
more towards of to the social media, right? Facebook, Twitter, and Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. We can't blame them, because they are moving on because they are the latest generation, and they are moving on accordingly to the science and technology advancement. Okay, so we as a teacher, I think that it is very important for us to make our literature lesson fun as possible. Okay, Miss Amrit, I want to ask you something, because you have a very quite a time where you have experience teaching literature, right? So what is the
yes.
best approach or method that you used previously? You find it very
Okay.
fun.
Previously, when I taught them literature, they didn't have fun because they feel like literature is really difficult. It's very difficult to get through because you need to know
Mhm.
what is the figurative meaning, the literally meaning. You need to know all this. Okay, that's why they think that, oh, so it's difficult. I cannot get through to literature. I cannot do this because literature is difficult. So they give up. So what did I do was I introduced something called role play. Okay, where I had students bringing their costumes. They have their accents to match their poetry and whatever that they were doing in class. Okay, they have all those poems, all those novels, short stories that they're supposed to finish by each standard. Okay, each form and each they have their own syllabus. So what did I do was I introduced something called role play, and I feel like my students had a lot of fun. Okay, and previously I just actually there was a paradigm shift. Starting, I introduced to them where I told them to just read it at home and come to class, and where we can just
Mm-hmm.
discuss about it. But they did not do that, and they feel like, teacher, I'm sorry, and there were reasons and excuses telling me, they were giving me, and they're saying that, teacher, I'm sorry, I slept off. I'm sorry, I did not do it. So they were, so I really needed to do something. So when I look at role play, they were really happy with that because they get to be another person. Okay, there was another identity. So I feel like role play really worked with me.
Yeah, that's good. That actually role play is one of the classic but goal approach that you can apply it with your students, because when
Yes,
they do role play, actually they can actually feel the way the characters in the novel or in the short story, and even they can act out just a simple poem. They can act it out. All right. So
yes.
actually, role play is a good one. So I want to share with you a studies done there is a study done to there is a study conducted to actually look at, can we move on to the next slide?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a study done that actually they studied on how the teachers around Malaysia, what kind of approach they use, okay, what kind of method actually they use when they want to teach literature. Okay, so if you look at this table, activities employed by Malaysian teachers, all right. So on your left side will be the list of activities. Okay, so it based on information-based activities, personal response activities, language, and so on. And on the right is the frequency. Okay, so the frequency, how often Malaysian teachers use this approach when they want to teach literature. Okay, so unfortunately, if you look at the highest score for frequency, you can see that 10. Okay, can you see under the paraphrastic activities? Okay,
Yes.
number 13, item number 13. Okay, so translation of text using L1, which also known as our mother tongue language, which is Malay language. So surprisingly, most of the Malaysian teachers these days, they tend to translate everything, okay, to make them understand better. They translate everything in English into Malay, and we find it quite boring. The lesson would be quite dull. Yes, they can easily to understand it for the purpose of to get them ready to answer SPM examinations, right? For the SPM. Okay, so but that is not good. Okay, so they can just retain the information for a shorter period for the purpose of answering exam questions, which is not good. All right, so translation not good. Okay, so not good in terms of to make the lesson fun. Okay, so it's not fun at
Yes.
all. Okay, so if you look at, okay, if like what Miss Samdi said, she used a lot of role plays and all. Yes, role play is a very good method for us to actually attract more students to love and appreciate literature. Okay, so if you look at method for role play, you can see that under language based activities, item number 12. All right, you can see how quite the frequency marks is quite low being applied by the teachers around Malaysia. All right, where actually this is quite a good method that you can apply for those students. All right.
Maslin, I think
Yes.
that they don't really use that because they feel like it's
Mm.
time consuming, right?
Yes,
So
time
probably,
consuming, and
uh,
plus they only have like 1 year to complete all the novels or the poems that they need to study. So I do believe the reason why Malaysian teachers didn't do a lot of role play because of time consuming, and plus they
yes,
have to do a lot of things, right? They have
yes.
to like to spend a lot of money to create the props, and even the students also they need guidelines. So actually it's quite a hard work for the teachers. All right, so I feel sorry for them. Okay, and also if you look at the frequency, the second highest frequency is called 8. Okay, for like for example, if you look at information based activities, the first category. Okay, and the item number one, comprehension questions exercises. So this is a common practice. Okay, so common practice because everything is exam oriented only. So normally teachers around Malaysia and even lecturers, I don't blame teachers, they are also for lecturers. So normally Malaysian students, they learn literature in order to answer, to achieve better in their examination. All right. So that is why we need to use. Okay, if you say like role play is time consuming, we need to sacrifice a lot of our money, our time and all our effort, so why don't we move on to the next approach? Okay, so I will share with you some of the approaches, okay, to get you some clearer ideas. Can we move on to the next slide? All right. So strategies for teaching literature. You don't really have to depend 100% on role play. We can use different kind of approaches, okay, or methods. For example, like these days, teenagers, all of them, I believe that all of them, they have their own account for Facebook account, Twitter account, TikTok account, Instagram account. Why don't we just make use of it? All right, make use of all of these accounts, okay, so that they can actually perform better in class. And plus to make them more interesting to pay attention in during our their literature class. Okay, so if you look at this, use different kinds of media, or better yet, combine it. Okay, so what kind of media am I talking about? So we have two types of media. So a classic media, okay, for example, like role play is actually one of the classic media. We also have poems, recitation, or choral speaking. Those are classic media. Okay, so this the modern media also you can use, for example, like TikTok, video games, or perhaps you want them to do a podcast, okay, a video recording. So all of this you can combine it both in your lesson. Okay, give them as a homework. For example, all right, guys, today some we have learned a poem, Hamlet. Okay, it's not a poem. Okay, so a poem written by Shakespeare. So I want you guys to actually to explain it into your own words. What does it mean with that poem, and produce it in a broadcast, produce a video about it. So make it as a homework. All right. So if you make it as a homework, so students will find it interesting. All right. So perhaps you should give it a try. All right. So let's go to number two. Get the students to creatively convert essays into videos or podcasts. Okay. So it's the same. You can combine between the classic media or the modern media. So here, what I'm talking about is, okay, for example, the question is, okay, for example, like for Form 5 students. Okay, so they learn about a novel titled Captain Nobody. Okay, so perhaps you ask them, the question is, what are the moral values that they can learn from that novel? All right, so instead of asking them to write a boring essay, perhaps you can ask them to like act it out, all the moral values, or perhaps they can create the moral values into a poem. Okay, they can convert the essay into poem, and then they have to recite it. They recite it, not just that, they can record the whole recitation, poem recitation of that moral values, or perhaps podcast it. All right, gain some popular from that. So that's what the teenagers want these days. All right, so we can also use that. All right, let's look at number three. Create social media based reading clubs. Okay, so reading club is very good for students who are like who who didn't read much in their daily basis. Okay, so who don't read much in their daily basis. So by doing this reading club, or perhaps students who has quite lower proficiency in English, so reading club actually helps them a lot. Okay, so for example, in one class, all right, so one class you consists of like 15 or 20 students. All right, so you divide the students. Okay, so perhaps you divide them into groups of 5 people. All right, so okay, so these 5 people, they have to form one reading club. Okay, so one each person will take one chapter to read in that novel. Okay, so when you give them some time to read, to complete only one chapter for each of them, and then you get them together. Or perhaps it's not get them together, you have to use Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, right? So you can simply ask them to sit together, fine, and then they can make a live Facebook or live Instagram, so they can get to discuss with each other. So, what do you understand about chapter one in this in this novel titled Captain Nobody? So, this student will actually explain what do they understand about this. Then, moving on to the next student. Okay, so using this, you can actually capture the moment, post it in Facebook and whatnot. So, all of these are very helpful. Okay, for the students and also helpful also for the viewers. Okay, perhaps they don't have any ideas what does it mean with Captain Nobody. They with Captain Nobody, what is the moral values of it. So they can just actually learn by enjoying it. All right. So we can use that. Create a social media base. Okay. So you don't have to actually depends on role play. All right. So you may take some time. So you can just simply take a few time to create this kind of club via social media. All right. So
I think
if
Manzlin,
in
it's
yes,
sorry to interrupt you, Manzlin.
okay, no
I
problem.
feel like it's really good as well because
Hmm.
right now we are having the new normal and everything. So
Yes, definitely.
it's better to be on social media.
Yes, because everything is in social media, right? They have to conduct class virtually. So instead of just simply the normal boring Google Meet class, why don't we just conduct class via Instagram, via Facebook? So we utilize all this kind of social media, and I believe, don't worry, I believe that all students or all teenagers around Malaysia they have this their personal account, social media personal account. So use that, okay? All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so have them to create and produce an ongoing podcast or YouTube channel or relevant themes, text or authors. Okay, so this one, uh, perhaps you can just focus, you can ask them what kind of author, who is your favorite author? Okay, so you can ask them to, okay, for example, one student, his favorite author is perhaps, okay, favorite author is Mitch Albom, okay, for example. So you can ask him to actually produce a YouTube channel, okay, only talk about this author and all of his literary work, okay. So from this also you can ask them, um, you can actually encourage them to read, okay. So they have to tell stories. What does it mean with this novel? Okay, so what are the characters presented in this novel and whatnot? So it's not just by YouTube, you can also use it via podcast. All right. So have them to create this, perhaps with the assistance of from the teachers, of course. Okay. So assistance from the teachers. So you can encourage them to learn literature by doing this. Okay. So if you move on to the next point, do some pre-reading activities. Okay, so this one, perhaps before you even start your literature lesson, you can have a lot of pre-reading activities before you jumping on to the novel or the poem. Okay, so you can simply ask them to, what do they think when they first read the title of the poem. Okay, Amrit, could you please show us the poem? Okay, so the poem title, What Has Happened to Lulu? Okay, so that is the title of the poem. Okay, just show them the title of the poem and ask them, what do you guys understand about this poem? What can you predict or what can you guess? What is happening in the poem? Okay, what is going to present in the poem? So you can just simply ask them to put on their thinking cap, discuss together with their friends, have some fun. Okay, so by doing that discussion and all that, okay, so they can actually understand it more better once they read the poem or learn the poem. Okay, so actually, if you look at the poem, this is quite surprisingly dark. I mean, the theme or the mood of this poem is quite
Yeah.
dark. If you look at this, what has happened to Lulu? There's nothing in her bed but an old rag doll, aside the shoe. Okay, why is her window white? Mother curtains are flapping free. So we can see that actually Lulu, or her sister or maybe her little sister, okay, ran away from the home. Okay, so we can see that from here you can ignite their discussion. Okay, you can actually also increase their confidence level. Okay, so they also able to like voice out their opinions. Okay, so you need to accept all kinds of answers. There's no right or wrong answers in this kind of um, approach. Okay, so you're asking them to make prediction. All right. Okay, so thank you, Miss Amrit. Can we go back to the previous slide?
Okay.
All right. And finally, actually, they are more than just this. Okay, so these are just some ideas that you can apply when you want to teach them literature. All right, and finally, you can ask them to create their own comic strips based on what they have read. Okay, so for example, it can be from the poem, it can be from a short story or drama. So instead of asking them to do role play or ask them to record a video or podcast, you can simply ask them to create a comic strip, but put them into groups. Okay, because comic strips are quite difficult, right? We have to depend on their artistic skills and all this. All right, so perhaps you can place them into groups. Each of these group they must have one or two students who are actually very good or talented in drawing. Okay, so you can ask them to sit into groups and then they have to discuss on how to create the comic strips. Okay, if you move on to the next slide, which is not the poem, the next slide, which is you can see few examples of video or comic strip. Okay, let's talk about the comic strip. On your right, you can see that that is one of the example of comic strip for a novel titled Dear Mr. Kilmer. Okay, so you can see that they are not just going to create to draw and imagine the situation based on the story or a poem, but they also have to create a dialogue. Okay, it's like a comic with a dialogue in it. Okay, so that dialogue also they have to think, they have to brainstorm together what they should say, or it's just simply based on the story itself. Okay, so they can create this kind of comic, make them as a project based assignment or homework. All right, they will love this. Okay, other than that, also if you look at the picture on the left, so this is actually a screenshot of a video taken from the YouTube. So this is actually a short story titled Captain Nobody. All right. So this movie, this is not a movie. So this short clip is only for 10 minutes. So in a simpler way, you can just not just simply ask them to read. You can just show them the video in class. All right. So this video also can help them to understand literature better. And at the same time, of course, uh, all of us love to watch videos, right? Whenever you are in the classroom or whatnot, we all love to watch videos. Okay, so why don't we just show them this video? All right, they have a lot of different kind of videos in YouTube, so you can easily access to all of them. Okay, all right. And if you look at the next slide, okay. So next slide also, these are some of the examples. Okay, I'm more interested on the picture on the right. Okay, so this is actually a screenshot from an Instagram with a hashtag a poison tree. Do you know what is a poison tree? You know what is this? Amrit, Miss
Yes,
Amrit?
I've heard it before.
This is actually a poem. Okay,
Yes.
so
Mm.
Form 5 students, they need to learn this, a poison tree. Okay,
Yes.
so okay, so by doing this, okay, so perhaps you can ask them to like read the poem and then get them into groups or perhaps individual work. Ask them to create a mind map, okay, or perhaps they have to create a mind map or they have to write down explanations or something or create a video, anything that is related to explanation of this poem, and then they can just post it in their own Instagram account with the hashtag a poison tree. Okay, so by this, everyone can view their work. Okay, so perhaps also you can apply like this, as a reward system. Okay, you can tell them this that you will get a reward if you able to gain more viewers or you can get more likes, okay, based on your artwork that you have done or the project that you have done. Okay, by doing that, actually you are encouraging them to work harder in order for them to learn literature. All right, so this is quite good, okay, for them to apply this approach. But of course, the teacher itself must have enough knowledge or adequate knowledge on how to conduct, what does it mean with hashtag, how to conduct, how to record a YouTube video, how to do podcast. So you, as a teacher, you must know all of this. Okay.
Tech savvy. Tech savvy.
All
You have
right.
to be tech savvy.
And yes, correct. Okay. And finally, if you look on the picture on the left, Okay, so this is actually I taken this screenshot from a YouTube. Okay, where a student from which school I can't remember. So this student actually they act it out. Okay, they act out a scene from Lily Edward. I can't remember which novel it is, but they act out the scene and then they post it in YouTube. So from that they can get the same concept like in Instagram. Okay, the more likes or the more share or views that they get. Okay, so they can get better rewards from that. Okay, so actually this kind of thing encouraging them reward system, popularity, TikTok thing, Instagram, all this actually aligns to our advance in science and technology these days.
Yeah.
Teenagers love that. Okay, so why don't we use that? Okay, so in our lesson when you want to teach literature. All right. So do you agree with me, Miss Amrit, about all of
Yes.
this approach?
Yes, I agree with you because students these days they like their Facebook, they love their social medias, they love all their accounts everywhere.
Definitely.
So if
Yes.
you give them something to do it online, they'll be like, yes, for sure, I would love to do that. I actually implemented this in my class before, where
Mm.
I told them to post something in their Facebook, and they actually did it with a lot of enthusiasm. They did it. Wow, the results were amazing because they get to do something online, something that they really like doing. They're
Yes.
browsing their social medias almost all the time. So might as well do their homework at the same time. So I feel
Yes.
it
So instead
really
of
work out.
asking them to do the normal homework, writing out an essay, what are the moral values of this and that, so they can actually do their homework while just simply surfing on their social media account. By doing that, we are actually throwing a stone to two birds, right? You are killing birds with one stone, like that. Okay, so we are actually doing two things at the same time, right? So yes, that's what I would like to share about this. But still, Miss Amrit, roleplay is still golden. It's still a
Golden.
good
Yes.
method. Okay? But yes, as I agree, I also agree that roleplay thing they are classic, but at the same time they might consume a lot of time and energy for you to produce that kind of production or play. All right. So
Yes.
yes. So I think that is all from my side. Okay. So this is how but as a teacher, for me, in my opinion, you have to like constantly keep up to date on what are the latest approach that you can use. Okay.
I
Because
agree with
yes, what are the latest approach that actually you can attract the students to learn at the same time to have fun? Okay, because nowadays students these days they don't like to be pushed, they don't like to be pressured on a lot of written homeworks, all these thick books and all. Okay, so they can just simply use their mobile phone, which is of course a daily. They spend like how many hours out of 24 hours? They spend more than
24.5 probably.
34.5 hours, I don't know, per daily. Okay, so by doing that, they actually can just do their homework and learning at the same time,
I
right?
really think this is a very good idea because, I've taught like small children before this, and when I asked them, "What is your favorite fairy tale? What is your favorite, literature? Probably poems." Actually asked them. They don't even know who Cinderellas are. They don't even know Beauty and the Beast. They have
Mm,
popular YouTubers. They watch YouTube more than they actually read those storybooks. So how do you implement? How do you do this? So teachers should also be tech savvy, like how you state just now. You stated just now
yeah,
that you should know, you should keep up with the trend. You yourself should have an account. In Instagram, in Facebook, in
yeah.
TikTok, and you should observe, and probably you can just go into it as well. Why not?
Mhm. Yeah, because
Yeah.
during my time, all these literature pieces like Cinderella, Snow White, and the Seven Dwarfs, all these we are very popular. This kind of artwork are very popular during our time, right? So why?
Yes.
Because we are not very exposed to all these gadgets, to all these
Mm.
YouTube, TikTok thing. So that's the problem with these generations. But we can't blame them because they are
Yeah.
moving on with the
Yes.
era of science and
Mm.
technology. right?
We cannot use traditional methods to educate them because they're keeping up with the technology. So what we can do, we have to be one step ahead of them. We have to make sure that we know more of what social media accounts they
We
are
have to
using. We
go
know,
with the flow.
yes,
Yes,
we have to follow them, keep up with them.
we have to keep up. We have to be more advanced in terms of science and technology
Yes,
above them, right? So,
yes.
okay. So, do you have any questions from the listeners? Right? Are they going to this? Okay. So, I really hope that this is a fruitful information for you guys. Okay. So, and all of these techniques shared with you. Perhaps if you have any other techniques that which you like to share with us. Okay, so this is as far as I know, we need to be more advanced in terms of science and technology. Use that. Okay, utilize that. Okay, and also if you don't have any like social media account, which is impossible. All of us might have our own social media account.
Yes.
Okay, so we really need to like utilize it. Okay, all right. So
So do we have any questions so far? I think we do not. Okay, Maslin, it was a great time sharing with you. Okay, thank you so much with your insight. That was really brilliant. Okay, thank you so much. I hope it will help
thank
me
you, Miss
with my
Amit.
sessions. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you also for all these listeners. Okay, so I know it's quite humble presentation from us, so I really hope that you enjoy watching us presenting live. Okay, and I really hope that you can learn something from here. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you. And I would